How much validity is there to the current creepy clown craze?
Well, that depends on how you look at it. I mean, clearly people are taking this seriously. I mean, the news just came out this morning that a school board in Connecticut has now banned clown outfits and other terrorizing costumes for this Halloween. So, I mean, people are obviously taking this very seriously. So in terms of the reality of a creepy clown threat, Matt, it seems relatively suspect. I mean, there are absolutely people dressing up as clowns and doing weird things, mostly at night, usually just standing, which is plenty creepy enough for a clown at night. So we're not denying that this hasn't happened. However, in the vast majority of the cases where police have been called in to investigate, no clown proof has been found. So I think what we're dealing with is a combination of some pranksters, along with the power of the internet and the mind,
to amplify
this sort of craze. So in terms of the real threat that you might be accosted by a clown, that seems fairly unlikely. This is much more sort of a viral story. And we saw this originally break out in the UK, and usually around this type of year. So this isn't the first year that we've had clown sightings as we approach Halloween. Yes. It just started a little bit earlier in South Carolina in August. So I don't think it's you're actually going to meet a clown. However, that is not to say that the notion of clowns as creepy doesn't have validity, because I think there is absolutely some truth and some realness to your fear of them.
Where does that, in fear perhaps is a bit strong, but
sure,
it's unsettling, and I would prefer to avoid the company of clowns. Why do we find these clowns creepy?
And yet you hang out with me, Matt. I think some people will find that a disconnect. I think it's actually all about context, because I think what's creepy about the clowns is that they're not in a parade or at a kid's party or in the context where we tend to think of someone in a mask, which is, generally something that is unnerving, but all of this sort of paraphernalia. So the idea of, a clown watching, say, in the Santa Claus parade or an upcoming parade, Thanksgiving Day parade, is one thing. That exact same clown, say, riding the TTC at 2 a.m., that's a bit unnerving, in full costume. So I think it's really all about the context of it. It's also, of course, clowns represent childhood, and there's the idea that the corruption of them or that loss of innocence represents something. We've seen this in lots of fables and stories and horror movies, where clowns can represent something, the loss of something. We also see this with other childhood sort of symbols like dolls. Dolls take on a lot of evil premise. The whole idea being that something so innocent and innocuous can represent something dark. So I think that, all of that boils down to why we can be scared of clowns. But I have to say, there is something to the clown craze this year, Matt, that does seem especially potent. You can't help but think it represents something larger about our culture, that it has taken hold so large, so quickly this year. And we are so driven by fear.
This culture of fear.
We really are. And especially as we're all watching, not to tie everything back to politics, but as we're all watching fear being peddled as a major political force and as a reason why you would vote for someone down south of the border, it's not surprising that then the culture manifests itself in these sorts of topics and these sorts of imagery. After all, what could be more frightening right now than a figure of entertainment turning up to lash out at odd hours of the day and in unpredictable ways, Matt? I mean, is there anything more terrifying than to think of someone who is meant to entertain us suddenly becoming powerful and scary? I can't think of anything more frightful than that. I mean, that's a clown show to definitely be afraid of, Matt.
Could he